Hello there, and welcome into another edition of the JayMac Snack, a special feature of the JayMac podcast, where we take about 15 minutes or less and we do a deep dive on a particular issue, get you all the facts that you need, and then let you move on with your life. Today, we're going to tell you how President Trump has lost this election over 86 times so far. But they're still hanging on to hope. It's pretty unbelievable, if you ask me. So I thought I'd share with you all of the attempts that have been made. Would you like kind of a summary? All of the attempts that have been made by this president or his allies to overturn an election or throw out votes in their particular state or county. And then I'll tell you where I get this number that he's lost 86 times. For somebody who doesn't like to lose, that's a pretty big number. So, loss number one, the president is on track, this from Business Insider, to lose the Electoral College. He'll get 232 votes compared with Biden's 306. That will be formalized tomorrow on December 14th. I'm recording this on Sunday evening. So you'll probably be listening on the 14th, and it will be in process as you're listening. For those of you who are hopeful still that on January 6th, I think it is, when Congress certifies the election process, some people are hopeful, like that's the last hurrah, the last hope. I'm telling you right now, that will be the last loss for the president. Because basically, if they get a challenger to the validity of the electoral votes, a challenger from the Senate and a challenger from the House, then each House will adjourn and they will have a hearing and they will vote on whether or not those electoral votes should be thrown out. But the House and the Senate have to agree. Now, unfortunately, there's no way in creation that's going to happen. So anybody holding out for a last hope when Congress meets to certify this election, it's just not going to happen. Some people are confused. They think that this is the process that happens, that kicks in automatically if neither candidate gets more than 270 votes. In that case, the House decides, and each state only gets one vote. But that's only if one candidate does not get more than 270 votes. So that's not what's going to be happening here. So any hope for a final outcome, a final victory in the last moment, it's not going to happen. So really the only place it could happen between now and then is another court case. But that's not going to happen either. At least not based on what I've seen they're presenting to the courts. Okay, so President Trump lost the electoral vote. He lost the popular vote. He lost 2 recounts that his campaign requested in Georgia. Both of those cemented Biden's victory in the state, a hand count and a machine count. Then he lost a recount in Wisconsin, after which Biden actually gained votes. This is the one where the Trump campaign spent $3 million for recounts in 2 counties, Dane and Milwaukee. Trump did pick up an additional 45 votes in Dane County, but Biden picked up 132 after Milwaukee's recount. So that's a net gain of 87 votes for Biden. You figure out the cost per vote there. President Trump spent a pretty penny donors' money to get 87 more votes for Biden. Then the Trump campaign and his affiliates, Republican officials, have filed nearly 40 lawsuits challenging the election results since November 3rd. Of those, they haven't won a single case. And as I pointed out, one of the reasons is that the case that they're presenting in the court of public opinion is not the case that they're presenting in a court of law. The majority of their cases in the courts, they focus on small irregularities, questions about voting procedures and election administration in different states. They're not alleging fraud in these cases. They're not providing evidence of fraud. Yet, for some reason, in front of the world, in the court of public opinion, they're presenting all of these things, and diehard Trump supporters just eating it up. Look at these mountains and mountains of evidence. You can say anything you want in public. You can allege anything you want. People are like, but affidavits, they are punishable by force of law. Not until you file them in a court. And that's not happening. Now we get to the 86 losses. At least 86 judges across the country, from the state level all the way to the Supreme Court, have rejected at least one legal challenge by the president or his supporters. And the rejections are scathing. In Pennsylvania, U.S. District Judge Matthew Braun, a former senior Republican official, denied the Trump campaign's request to invalidate millions of Pennsylvania mail ballots. He said this lawsuit is a Frankenstein's monster. He criticized the legal team, led by Giuliani, for presenting the court with, quote, strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations. He said he would not disenfranchise 7 million Pennsylvania voters as a result. Then a Pennsylvania appeals court panel, in a 3-0 vote, said charges of unfairness are serious, but calling an election unfair does not make it so. Another Trump appointee wrote in a sharply worded opinion that was joined by the panel's 2 other judges, both of whom are Republican appointees, quote, charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here. Did you hear that? Neither. We don't have specific allegations and we don't have proof. The campaign's claims have no merit. Voters, not lawyers, choose the president, they said. In Georgia, U.S. District Judge Stephen Grimberg, another Trump appointee, rejected Republican lawyer Lynn Wood's request. Lynn Wood has become a folk hero along with Sidney Powell. They rejected his request to halt the certification of votes in the state, alleging that Georgia's Republican Secretary of State hurt him as a voter by agreeing to a settlement over signature matching on ballots in March. When dismissing the case, the judge wrote, to halt the certification at literally the 11th hour would breed confusion and disenfranchisement that I have found no basis in fact and law. In Wisconsin, another Trump judicial appointee threw out the president's lawsuit seeking to void Biden's victory in the state. He said, quote, a sitting president who did not prevail in his bid for re-election has asked for federal courts' help in setting aside the popular vote based on disputed issues of election administration, issues he plainly could have raised before the vote occurred. He went on to say, this court has allowed plaintiff the chance to make his case, and he has lost on all the merits. And then, of course, we come to Friday. The Supreme Court handed Trump his biggest defeat yet. And I don't think it was his biggest defeat. I don't think President Trump felt for a single second he was going to win the Texas lawsuit. I don't believe that Texas felt that they were going to win that lawsuit. I don't believe anybody who joined the lawsuit felt that they were going to win that lawsuit. That was a blatant show of support for President Trump. I'm not a lawyer, But based upon my research, it was very easy to see that Texas and the other states had no standing. That the Constitution says that individual states get to decide their elections. And you don't have standing if you're another state and you don't like the way they handled an election. That whole issue of states being able to sue another state, you know what that was about? That was put in place to handle border disputes and water disputes. Not to sue somebody else because you don't like their election, especially when that very specific right and authority is enshrined in the Constitution itself. That thing had no hope from the very beginning. Yet here are all the Trump supporters getting ginned up, and this is the big one, and wait for it, this is going to be amazing. Set up for disappointment once again. How much disappointment can you take? Well, the truth is that they're not being disappointed because every time it happens, they just add another enemy to the list. So that judge is now an enemy. That appeals court judge is now an enemy. That Republican Secretary of State is now an enemy. That Republican governor is now an enemy. The Supreme Court is now an enemy. That's what happens when you develop a blind faith in one person. And that's exactly what he's been going for the last 4 years. And he got it. He got exactly what he wanted. And what's crazy and scary is that those very people are calling everybody else sheep when they believe blindly in every single word from this president. In a one-page opinion, the Supreme Court said that Texas had not demonstrated a judicial cognizable, is that how you say that? Cognizable? There you go. Interest in the manner in which another state conducts its elections. Now, a lot of people believe that that was a 7-2 decision. It was not. What happened is Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas said that they should at least hear the case. They believe that any time that one state sues another state, that case must automatically be heard. Whereas the other justices believe that they should have the right to vote on it, which is how they decide how to handle all of their other cases. They vote. But Alito and Thomas said, we believe that every case should be heard. But they went on to say, however, in this case, we still would have ruled that Texas and the other states had no standing. So it wasn't a 7-2 decision. It was a 9-0 decision that Texas and the other states had no standing. So that's where we're at. That's how many losses we've seen so far. That's how little evidence we've seen. And once again, I would ask you, if you still stand by this president and his claims, why is the case that he's presenting to the American people in the court of public opinion, why is it so desperately different than the case being presented in the court of law? He has you convinced, but that's not his job. He has to convince a court, and that should be his highest priority if he truly is doing what he says he's doing. And that's making sure the American people have a free and fair election. If he's only presenting it in a court of public opinion, then he's guaranteeing that he himself will have continued power and authority long after he leaves office. And he's using you as a pawn to get there. I recommend you go back and listen to my other JayMac Snack, where I detail the long history of voter fraud allegations. President Trump has been throwing voter fraud allegations around since 2012. He even at one point said Ted Cruz committed voter fraud. Now he's asking Ted Cruz to defend him in the Supreme Court. Oh my, how things change. Isn't it amazing. Hey, if you like these JayMac Snacks, please take a minute and become a patron of this podcast. I only ask you at the end of these podcasts. I don't want to ask you at the beginning, because I just want to provide as much information and a service to you as I can, because I truly love to do it. But I want to bring you more. I want to dedicate all my time and effort to this. You can help me out by becoming a monthly patron. Scan on the QR code above monthly patron, or scan if it's just a one-time donation. $5 or more monthly, or whatever you can do, will really help out. And if you're listening, then just click on the description of this podcast or broadcast wherever you are listening. With that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and more JayMac Snacks on the way.